Hey YouTubers, we're doing something really unique here. This is our first time ever doing a series first impression for
Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon. So we recently watched episode 1 of House of the Dragon.
As many of you all did as well.
It was a big release, I hear, right?
I heard the biggest, it topped Game of Thrones records.
Wow.
So
HBO Max be like crashing.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, we are going to give you our general first impressions, and then we'll probably go into some spoilers and giving you kind of the good, bad, and the ugly, maybe what we thought about it in general.
And we'll give a warning when we start to go into spoilers.
Absolutely, yeah, we'll do something like this with Dragon Ball. Okay, so what do you think? Give us your general thoughts, Kyle, and then we'll...
General thoughts? It was Game of Thrones. It was back to what I liked. There was a lot of politics. Be they gross politics or not, we were definitely thrust back into that world. I felt like it was a pretty good opening. I was intrigued. I wasn't 100% sold like this is going to be the best thing ever yet, but it definitely did the things that it needed to do to get me as a viewer back on board. So
because I know it faltered up, season 7 and 8 faltered a little bit for you and for most people.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was along the same lines. My expectations were slightly lower, although I was a little hyped when we watched the trailer.
Yeah.
And I still, I love medieval fantasy. And I was pleasantly surprised. There was a lot of, like you said, the court intrigue was back. I felt like it was almost, I recently watched Bridgerton, which I loved. And I felt, to me, it seemed like Bridgerton, but with blood and sex appeal. And maybe I'll go into that a little more later.
Yeah.
But yeah, between the first half of the original Game of Thrones series, right, it was more like who gets the Iron Throne, like doing the we're back in on the game, right, the Game of Thrones, and that's what I felt here when they're talking about, oh, this guy's that and this, and then back in the with the Hands of the King doing the court discussions and the bloody, the joust and everything. Cinematography I thought was pretty fabulous. One thing I wanted to note too was that all the scenes, I know Game of Thrones is pretty dark, right?
Sure.
And in of itself, how it was filmed and filtered and everything. And this way I felt the same, but I almost saw a take on it that was very medieval, almost like a Caravaggio, like that kind of take.
It had a bit of a glow around it. Like, it was still dark, but it had just, you could tell we were, this is happening 170 years or almost 200 years earlier.
Interesting.
Because it, King's Landing looked a little bit more polished. Like, we didn't see quite as much decay. It was more of the height of the, Roman or Greek Empire. And I think that's what the creators were going for, was having that elevated sense of things. Now, I will say, my only negative, and I think you agree with me, was that carried over into the CGI didn't quite hit home with me, to be honest. I thought that there were parts of King's Landing where they looked a little too nice. There was maybe a little bit too much reliance on CGI, whereas I think that I felt more immersed in the original series because it was much more practical effects. Yeah,
I think they visited different locations for filming.
Yes.
And everything. Yeah, this seems to be all one, a really amazing set.
Yes.
But a lot of it, even then, was backdrop. Some of the interior shots were backdrop by some CGI.
Yeah.
And we talked about the dragons.
The dragons were. I wanted to see a little bit more. Now, I understand that they probably saved their budget for the dragons, because they did this with Game of Thrones too, where they saved their budget for when the dragons are like really doing stuff, like that's where they put all the CGI money. But I really wanted just a little bit more in the first episode to make me be like, wow, this is amazing. And it was just a little bit below what my standards were. That's so nitpicky.
Right.
That's so nitpicky. That's really my biggest complaint about the first episode. But other than that, I really enjoyed it.
Good. Yeah, I think it was return to form in some scenes.
Yes.
And we had Game of Thrones again, from the brothels to the court intrigue, the whole thing. And I just want to point out the dragons is I was a little, I don't know, they seemed to be more realistic somehow in the first season. Maybe how they were acting or growling, or how they were incorporating the set. Maybe it's just a darker
scene. More weight to them.
Yeah, here I felt like I was looking at like something from Monster Hunter, like a Monster Hunter monster.
A little bit,
just shoved inside. Yeah. But anyway, so that's it. But otherwise, I was pleasantly surprised. I starting from the court scene, or the the flashback of the king and selecting the heir and going from there. Lots of
the dialogue was, I think, at the very first couple sequences, it was just a little clunky for me, but then it really clicked in. And the performance is really, I was really impressed. I think that there were incredible performances all around. Matt
Smith, who plays...
Oh, brilliant.
He plays Daemon, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was like, this is what a badass, right? He's a bit of a firebender, a bit of a rebel, and he does kind of get... He's a little arrogant, he pays for that. And that's a very Game of Thrones thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So Okay, overall, yeah, thumbs up. I'm going to keep watching. I'm going to give it the I don't know if anybody watches anime watching this, but there's the 3-episode rule. I'm going to give it at least 3 episodes and go from there.
I'm definitely going to give it 3 episodes.
So, but
I'll enjoy it.
I'm glad to be back in the world of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, now we're going to talk here some spoilers, some things that happen throughout the first episode.
Spoilers!
And yeah, so we'll just touch on a few points and kind of wrap it up. So one thing I want to talk about first that might be spoilery is the pregnancy scene.
Yes.
The things that stand out to me.
Yes.
So my wife is pregnant currently, and I'm taking courses about babies and related to birth and everything like that. So when they...
Probably a bit traumatic for you. Yeah.
Well, sure. Or any woman who's gone through it.
Of course.
And when they talk about, when I forget her name, who's the queen...
I'm still getting their names, and because I know some of them are like
Rhaenyra and Daemon,
Rhaenyra, Daemon, Viserys,
we'll have to get back into the game. So, but that scene for me, I think, was pretty poignant. It was very harrowing, right?
Yes.
So they portrayed it, it was like a breach where the baby's kind of upside down. Do you know?
Yes.
Breaches, the feet first, and you can give birth that way. But I like how it was this dichotomy where they paired it with the battle, the jousting is going on at the same time.
Because she, and the director said about this in the end sequence, but because they wanted it to mirror, like, when she says at the beginning of the episode, the battlefield,
that's totally
right. Our child bed is the battlefield.
It's
for us, and that was
it's true.
Cool.
It's bloody, and you could die, and especially in the, Game of Thrones takes place, it's a kind of a medieval fantasy story. So I think George R.R. Martin, if you look at like the actual Westeros map, it's kind of like a medieval England almost in a way, or some kind of European country. Yeah. So it takes place in that time, and it's in that case it's kind of patriarchal. The man had to make the choice, right, whether the baby lives or dies. That's something also. Speaking of Bridgerton earlier, remember in season 2 of Bridgerton where they also asked the kid to make the choice for the mother.
Yes.
So that is a difficult point, right? But I think if it mirrors medieval life, that's more like a realistic point. But then I think that there's some comeuppance to that, right? Because in the end, Rhaenyra becomes the heir to the throne and everything. Yeah. So even though they maybe don't trust like female leadership at first, I think maybe we're going to see that be an important point going forward.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And so I talked to Julia about this, and I this is how I interpreted it on the second watch through.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you interpret it this way, but when Viserys has the dream and he says, "I dream that my child would be born wearing Aemon's crown," was that supposed to be symbology for the breaching? Because like the sharp crown, because she makes a point about it being sharp and painful, and like the leg or arm like coming out, like. That was what that translated to me the second time through. That was what that metaphor was.
Interesting. I'm not sure.
But I just was curious if that stood out to you at all. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. It just kind of, I was like, oh.
Who knows? You have to dig deeper. Especially in the second watch through, you catch more things like that. I've only seen it once. Yeah. So, I think I liked that. Again, I liked how they did that. And I also liked all the scenes where Daemon and his kind of brother are in conflict, right? And then he's having to figure out his way, and the father's trying to figure out, his own way. So what do you think? Any other scenes that kind of...
Oh, I mean, it's going to be... I think it's really interesting that Viserys is seen as weak, and that's what makes him a bad leader in this world, which makes sense, but he doesn't seem like a tyrant. And that's such an interesting thing that I think the good people who should be in power, are not typally put into power, or they, it seems like he's not going to last.
No,
long.
In Game of Thrones it happens, like with Nate Stark and stuff, right?
Exactly.
They're like, you're really...
Did you say Nate Stark?
What's his name? Ned Stark. Wow, it's really been like so many years.
Roast him in the comments below.
It's not Nate Stark. It's Ned Stark. Ned Stark. Yeah, so we'll see if they are good, or if they continue to hold power, or will they be... usurped, and everyone's vying for the throne, right? The High Towers, the table, the Valerians, right? Is that the Corlys?
Oh,
the other families.
Yes,
she was passed over.
I love that we got so many nods to players that are in the Game of Thrones that we know, like. You had the Starks, you had Rick on there at the
Baratheons, right?
You had the Baratheons there. I love the comment that he made. This is the political comment that he made where he said, "Oh, you know, he can wag his tongue all he wants. That won't get him the crown."
True.
And that's basically, you know, Robert Baratheon wagging his tongue and being a pompous jerk and a very entitled jerk is what ended up him. I thought it was interesting foreshadowing. I thought it was interesting.
And they did mention the Song of Fire and Ice at the end with with all the zombie White Walkers and everything. And that, to me, a little bit, and like they wanted to throw in the nods to the original series, to me it kind of undercut the tension a little bit, because it's like, oh, this stuff's going to happen in the future, and we already know what happens, but still watch this show.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I kind of hated it. It was like, it was very mixed bag for me. Exactly how you feel. Yeah, it was pretty much. It was just, I was like, I kind of like this. I kind of like.
One thing that was subtle that I really appreciated though from the Game of Thrones was when they incorporated the theme music.
Yes.
Through the beginning, that gave me goosebumps.
Yes.
You know, but it was done in a way where weaved into the new music, the new what is Targaryen theme or whatever. So okay. Well, that's any other standout scene. I love the jousting. It was all bloody and it was amazing.
Yeah, it was interesting. I loved how the jousting then led into hand-to-hand combat, which is that was historically accurate.
Yeah, and we saw it with that's true. Yeah, maybe
we don't see that a lot. It's normally like the rules of jousting. Ha
the tilting and the everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think normally in jousting rules you get down and kill the other person, but still, I mean,
you could though.
Are you serious?
You could challenge the knight to, because it's supposed to be like playing at war.
Yeah.
So you could then continue that fight.
Fight for honor.
And there were also specifically separate tournaments, to my knowledge, that would happen on jousting days that were just sword-to-sword combat.
All right, and the last thing I do want to mention before we go here is that I'm intrigued in the story on the sense that it is a Game of Thrones story, and it's dark and court intrigue and everything, but also because I'm curious to see the rise of Rhaenyra. I saw it as kind of like a Bildungsroman, like a story that starts when it's like a childhood story, and they grow up, and you get to see kind of their whole life and how that affects them, how they grow, and what happens. And so kind of like a famous novelist was David Copperfield, but also we see it in like Harry Potter, right?
Sure.
So that's going to be, I think, for me, a big narrative point that I'm looking forward to. And again, we've watched Game of Thrones. I've read the first book. I know, but I think we're interested more in like a story. We want to see a good story here, despite everything.
I think there were missed opportunities with the original series in how it ended. I still found ways to like it because I like the franchise so much. But I think that this is definitely this did what it needed to do for me, and I'm really excited. I think I'm also excited for the time jump that is inevitable.
Sure.
The casting between is incredible.
Yeah, for the pilot, magnificent.
They look amazing. Like the younger and older Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And just so good. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. And overall,
the costumes, the epic armors. I mean, I'd give it a watch out of 10.
I was gonna say like an 8. I was gonna say I give it like an 8.5.
Okay, I give it a Valerian Steel out of 10. All right. Well, thank you for watching this review. I hope it helped you get your thoughts together about the show.
And if you like this stuff, we've got a ton more on our channel. We're going to keep producing it. Please let us know in the comments down below if you like these, sort of first reactions, or if you'd like us to do episode reviews. We'll keep doing them because we love talking about this stuff.
Fantasy content!
Absolutely! Wow, wow, wow. And just thank you all so much for following along with us. And please remember to smite that like button and
subscribe. Don't subscribe, or else... what's his name? Sarlacc? The first dragon? We'll eat you.
I don't think it's Sarlacc.
Sarlacc! Mando! All right. See you next time.